If you have been anywhere near a screen in the last 4 hours, you have seen the images.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
And honestly, they are the kind of images that just make you stop scrolling and stare.
Absolutely.
We are looking at verified footage of massive billowing plumes of black smoke rising over the Tehran skyline.
And it's not just smoke. We have reports of secondary explosions.
Big ones, right?
Big ones, rocking the Iranian capital every few minutes.
And just like that, the era of diplomatic containment regarding the Iranian nuclear program, it appears to be completely dead.
It's dead and buried.
It didn't end with a treaty. It didn't end with a handshake. It ended with kinetic strikes.
And it is a brutal, decisive end. What we are breaking down for you today, Saturday, February 28, 2026, is the commencement of a joint military operation.
By the United States and Israel.
Exactly. Against the Islamic Republic of Iran. And looking at the stack of reports and source material we've pulled for this deep dive, let's be very clear about the scale here.
Right, this isn't a skirmish.
No, this isn't a message-sending operation like we saw back in 2024, or those tit-for-tat exchanges of previous years.
This is a full-spectrum attempt to fundamentally alter the power dynamics of the Middle East.
That is the big headline blinking on every news ticker right now. The gloves are officially off.
But usually when we hear about these flare-ups, it's about deterrence. It's about slapping the other guy so he stops doing something annoying.
Right, exactly.
The sources we're looking at today are suggesting something much more radical.
They are. The strategic goal has shifted literally overnight. We have moved from containment keeping the regime in a box to what looks undeniably like an attempt at regime change.
And the total neutralization of Iran's nuclear capability, which is a massive pivot. I mean, that is shifting the goalpost to a different stadium entirely.
It's unprecedented in modern history.
So here is our mission for this deep dive today. We need to unpack the actual tactics happening on the ground right now because the footage is chaotic, and we need to make sense of it for you.
We also need to explain the why.
Specifically, the political 180-degree turn by U.S. leadership that has left a lot of analysts baffled.
And we have to look at the what next. Because you can't drop bombs on a sovereign nation without triggering a cascade of consequences.
Right. And we have to talk about legality. Can they actually do this?
Plus, the history. You cannot make sense of Tehran today without understanding the betrayal of 1979.
Exactly. We've got reports from Tel Aviv Defense Analysis, from Washington, and historical archives to get through. So let's dive in.
Let's get into it.
I want to start with the immediate situation, the kinetic phase. The operation reportedly kicked off around 7 a.m. local time.
That's right.
Walk us through the tactical landscape. When we see chaos on social media, grainy videos of missiles people running into, what are military planners actually seeing?
They see a checklist. It looks chaotic to us, but this is extremely choreographed. The primary objective in these first few hours is establishing what we call air superiority. You simply cannot conduct a long-term campaign, especially one aimed at regime change, which implies a sustained presence if you're worried about your pilots getting painted by radar or shot down.
So right now, the U.S. and Israel are effectively trying to blind the Iranian military.
Precisely.
When you say blind, are we talking about electronic jamming cyber attacks, or are we talking about physically blowing things up?
It's both, but primarily kinetic destruction right now. It's what's known in military doctrine as SEAD. Yeah, SEAD, suppression of enemy air defenses. If you look at the target breakdown in the reports, there's a fascinating division of labor here between the two allies.
Okay, how so?
Israel is focusing heavily on western Iran. They are specifically targeting cities like Elam and Tabriz.
Why those specific cities? I know they're in the west, but what's the strategic value there? Why not go straight for the capital?
It's about geography and approach vectors.
Yeah.
Those cities sit on the primary flight paths from Israel into Iran.
Ah, I see.
They house the forward air defense batteries, the long-range radar systems, and the mobile missile launchers that guard the border. Israel is essentially clearing a corridor.
They are kicking down the front door.
Exactly. So that subsequent waves of aircraft can enter Iranian airspace safely. If you don't clear Tabriz and Elam, you can't get to Tehran without taking unacceptable losses.
Okay, that makes sense. Israel is the breacher, clearing the path. So once the door is open, what is the U.S. payload focused on?
The U.S. is hunting the crown jewels. They are hitting the deep political and nuclear targets.
And we're seeing some pretty shocking reports about that.
We are. We have unconfirmed but very persistent reports of strikes on the actual compound of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei.
Targeting the head of state directly, that seems unprecedented in recent years. I mean, even in the height of tensions, like with Soleimani, that was a military commander,
Right.
targeting the supreme leader's house, that feels personal.
It sends a message that the old rules of engagement are gone. It says, we're not just fighting your military assets, we're coming for you. It dissolves the distinction between the regime's military arm and its political and religious head. But the heavier ordnance is falling on the nuclear infrastructure.
Facilities in Isfahan and Natanz are under heavy fire.
Yes. And we need to pause on Natanz for a second.
We hear these names, Natanz, Isfahan, but paint the picture for us. These aren't just warehouses sitting on the surface, right?
No, not at all. These are some of the most hardened targets on Earth. Natanz, especially the newer construction, is buried deep inside mountains.
So standard bombs aren't going to do anything.
Right. To hit them, you aren't using standard gravity bombs.
Yeah.
You're using massive Earth-penetrating munitions, bunker busters.
That's what's causing those seismic-like tremors people in the region are reporting online.
Exactly. They are literally shaking the geology of the area to get to the centrifuges.
This is incredibly aggressive. But obviously, Iran has been preparing for this doomsday scenario for 40 years.
Yes, they have.
They aren't just sitting on their hands while this happens, right?
No. And that's where the situation gets volatile and, frankly, very dangerous for the wider region. Iran didn't wait for the dust to settle.
They anticipated this might happen eventually.
Right. They launched immediate counterattacks. We're seeing a use-it-or-lose-it mentality regarding their missile stockpiles.
Where are they hitting? Is this contained to military sites, or are they lashing out at cities?
It's everywhere they can reach. We have reports of retaliatory missile strikes impacting Jerusalem and Haifa.
Okay, but crucially, and this is the escalation everyone feared, Iran has declared that all U.S. bases in the region are now legitimate targets.
That is the massive shift. That draws in half the Gulf states. That's not just an Israel-Iran war anymore.
It draws in everyone. We're seeing strikes reported in Bahrain,
Which hosts the U.S. Fifth Fleet.
exactly. That is the nerve center of U.S. naval power in the Middle East.
If you hit Bahrain, you are hitting the U.S. Navy's headquarters.
Yeah.
We're also seeing reports from northern Iraq, Qatar, and Kuwait.
Anywhere there is a significant American military footprint, Iran is trying to overwhelm the air defenses with sheer volume.
Do we have casualty counts yet? I know it's early, but usually these bases are well defended.
It's early, but yes. There is a confirmed report of at least one fatality in Abu Dhabi in the UAE.
So within hours, this conflict has already spilled over the borders of Israel and Iran and dragged in the Gulf monarchies.
The UAE is now a combat zone, effectively.
I want to pause on the human element here, because it's easy to get lost in the military jargon of assets and vectors and payloads.
Right, we forget there are people on the ground.
We have a source, Benjamin Boley, who's currently in Tel Aviv. He described the scene this morning getting a notification from the Homefront Command app.
The immediacy of it is terrifying. He mentioned public life just grinding to a complete halt.
1 minute you're having a Saturday morning coffee, maybe planning to go to the beach, and the next your phone buzzes. You aren't watching it on TV, you're living it.
He described watching the Iron Dome and Arrow systems intercepting ballistic missiles directly over his apartment building.
The sky lighting up with explosions.
Right. And that's Tel Aviv, which has the most advanced civil defense infrastructure in the world.
For the civilians in Tehran, I imagine it's even worse.
They're caught between foreign airstrikes, which are precise but still terrifying, and a regime that likely uses human shields or places military assets in civilian areas.
And unlike Israel, Tehran doesn't have a sophisticated civil defense infrastructure for the general public, does it?
No. The bunkers in Tehran are designed for the regime leadership and the Revolutionary Guard. They are not for the shopkeepers or the university students.
The average citizen is incredibly vulnerable right now.
So we have the tactical picture: massive air campaign, immediate regional retaliation, civilians scrambling for cover. Let's shift to the strategic why.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that the goal is regime change. That is a loaded phrase. It carries the baggage of Iraq, of Libya. Are Netanyahu and Trump actually saying those words, or are we just inferring it?
They are saying it explicitly. And looking at the transcripts of their speeches, the rhetoric is fascinatingly specific.
Yeah, I noticed that in the source material.
Netanyahu didn't just issue a blanket warning to the government. He addressed the Iranian people directly. But he did something very unusual. He broke them down by ethnicity.
He listed Persians, Kurds, Azeris, Balochis. Why the laundry list? Why not just say citizens of Iran?
Because Iran is not a monolith. We tend to think of it as Iran, but it's an empire, essentially. a Persian core ruling over various ethnic minorities who live on the fringes.
Right, the borders are complex.
By naming the Kurds and the Balokis groups that have been brutally oppressed by the central government for decades, Netanyahu is trying to fracture the state's internal cohesion.
He's signaling to these separatist groups that this is their moment to break away.
He's trying to ignite a civil war alongside the invasion. He's telling them, we'll hit the government from the air, you hit them on the ground.
Precisely. He called it their opportunity to build a new and free Iran. And President Trump echoed that sentiment perfectly.
He stated, America is backing you with overwhelming force. Do not let this opportunity pass. It's a direct call to insurrection.
But that strategy, it feels like a massive gamble. It relies entirely on the premise that the Iranian people can and will rise up while bombs are falling on their heads.
That is the linchpin of the whole operation. You can bomb radar sites all day, but you cannot occupy a country of 90 million people, a mountainous, complex country from 30,000 feet.
For this to work, the populace has to finish the job on the ground.
Is there any evidence that they will? Or is this just wishful thinking from Western intelligence agencies who have been wrong about this before?
There is context to support it. Remember, just over a month ago, we saw mass protests in Iran.
The anger is definitely there.
The economy is in shambles, inflation is rampant, and the repression is suffocating. Trump promised them back then, help is on the way.
Now he's saying the help has arrived. But there's another player entering the chat, or recentering, I could say, Reza Pahlavi.
The Crown Prince, the son of the Shah who was deposed in 1979.
Correct. He's currently in exile, but he's become a central figure in this psychological warfare. And here's a detail from our sources that I found really smart, technically speaking.
What's that?
He's using analog radio.
Radio. In 2026. In the age of Starlink and fiber optics, why go back to Marconi?
It's a workaround. The Iranian regime is very good at the splinternet.
They can shut down the internet completely.
Exactly. They can block Telegram throttle, WhatsApp, deep packet, inspect everything. But blocking shortwave radio signals coming from satellites or across the border, that's much harder.
Physics is on Pahlavi's side there.
He is bypassing the digital firewall to speak directly to the older generation who remembers his father and the younger generation who is curious about him.
And what is he selling them? Is it a return to monarchy?
He's selling nostalgia mostly. He's positioning himself as the symbol of pre-1979 Iran.
A time that many young Iranians view with rose-colored glasses because they see photos of women in miniskirts, a functioning economy, international travel.
Right. He's urging them to reclaim that country. He's saying we can be normal again.
But the regime knows this playbook. They aren't stupid. They've survived mass protests in 2009, 2019, 2022. They know how to crush a street movement.
They're survivalists, absolutely. They're experts in repression. Right now, the leadership has gone underground.
Literally into those deep bunkers we mentioned.
But this raises what some analysts call the bunker paradox.
Which is?
How effectively can you run a police state from 300 feet underground?
You can give orders, sure.
But if the U.S. strikes, take out the communication nodes? Or if the security forces on the street, the Bosch feel like their leaders are hiding in safety while they are left to die on the street? Morale collapses.
The U.S. strategy is to sever the head of the snake so the body stops fighting.
It's psychological as much as it is physical. If the Bashis thinks the supreme leader is scared, maybe they get scared too.
Exactly. But if the Bossi stays loyal, then this becomes an absolute bloodbath.
Let's talk about the politics of this, specifically on the U.S. side. Because if you've been following American politics the last decade, this doesn't make sense.
It's a total contradiction.
We have Donald Trump, the America First president, the guy who built his brand on no new wars.
He spent years tearing apart the Bush administration for Iraq. He criticized nation building. He wanted to bring troops home.
And now, he's launching an open-ended military operation that he admits could result in American casualties. How do we square that circle?
It's difficult. It's a massive 180. But you have to look at the internal dynamics of the Republican Party right now. It's currently split into two very distinct tribes.
Break them down for me.
First, you have the Hawks. The traditional neoconservatives, think of the old guard. They have viewed the Iranian regime as the existential threat since 1979.
They've been waiting for this war for 40 years.
They look at the regime, see it crumbling economically, see it weak, and say, push them now. This is our chance to finish what we started.
And the other tribe.
The MGA, or America First Wing, Trump's diehard base, they generally hate foreign intervention.
Right. They want money spent on the border, on domestic infrastructure, not on bombs in Isfahan. They look at the Middle East and see a money pit.
So how are they reacting to their guy launching a major war? This seems like it would alienate his core supporters.
That is the great unknown. Our sources are showing confusion in the forums and on social media right now.
Some feel betrayed, asking, why are we doing this?
But others will never underestimate the rally around the flag effect. Once American troops are in harm's way, political tribalism often shifts to support the president.
Which brings us to the cynical calculus. Elections.
Always follow the calendar. Both Netanyahu and Trump are facing elections.
It seems too simple, though. Start a war to win an election.
It's cynical, but history shows that a military victory, or even just the appearance of decisive, strong leadership, can be a massive war bonus at the polls.
It sucks the oxygen out of the room.
Nobody is talking about inflation or healthcare or scandals when Tehran is burning and the president is giving speeches from the Oval Office. It allows them to dominate the narrative completely.
Is there an economic angle here? I feel like we always have to ask about the money. Is this about oil?
Follow the oil, but not for the reasons you might think. The U.S. doesn't need Iranian oil. But do you know who does? Exactly. Iran is a major oil supplier to China. They rely on it.
Ah, so this is a bank shot.
If you take Iranian oil offline, or if you control the spigot, if a U.S.-friendly government takes over in Tehran, you are squeezing Beijing.
In the broader geopolitical chess match between the U.S. and China, cutting off one of China's main energy taps is a significant strategic move.
It serves U.S. interests in a way that fighting for democracy doesn't. It hurts your primary global rival without firing a single shot at them directly.
That puts the America First contradiction in a very different light. It's not just about Iran, it's about the great power competition.
Exactly. It's 4D chess, or at least that's how the White House is viewing it.
Okay, so we have the tactical situation, the strategical, and the political mess. Now let's talk about the law. Because a listener asked a very simple question in the comments. Can they actually do this?
That is a legal quagmire. If we look at U.S. domestic law, the Constitution is clear. Only Congress can declare war. Article 1, Section 8.
But presidents have been ignoring that since, well, forever. Korea, Vietnam, Iraq.
Since the Korean War, basically. They use executive power. They argue that immediate threats to national security allow them to act first and ask permission later.
Under the War Powers Resolution of 1973, Trump has to notify Congress within 48 hours of hostilities starting.
But here's the loophole. He has a 60-day window before he legally needs congressional approval to continue.
So he has a 2-month runway. He can wage a full-scale war for 2 months before Congress can legally stop him.
Correct. And in modern warfare, 60 days is an eternity. By then, the regime might already be gone, or the conflict might be so entrenched that Congress can't defund it without looking like they are abandoning the troops.
It's a shoot first, legislate later approach.
What about international law? The UN, does this pass the sniff test there?
That is much clearer, and the verdict from defense experts and our sources is pretty unanimous. No. This is likely illegal under standard international law.
Why? What's the specific violation?
Because there is no UN mandate. The Security Council didn't vote for this. There is no international coalition. And crucially, this is a preemptive strike. Iran did not invade the U.S. yesterday.
So it's a war of choice.
Legally, yes. If we want to be uncomfortable but honest, we have to draw a parallel to what Russia did in Ukraine.
I think a lot of people would bristle at that comparison.
They might, but look at the mechanics. In the strict mechanical sense of international relations, a superpower is attacking a sovereign nation without a direct, immediate provocation like a prior invasion and without an international mandate.
The U.S. is arguing threat prevention, claiming they are stopping a nuclear attack before it happens.
But legally, it sets a precedent that erodes the concept of sovereignty. If you can attack a country because you think they might do something bad in the future, where does that end?
That is a sobering thought. It strips away the good guy, bad guy narrative and looks strictly at the rules of the road.
And those rules are being rewritten today.
To really understand the animosity here, why the U.S. and Israel are so fixated on this specific regime, why it's not just another dictator, we have to go back in time. We have to understand 1979.
The year everything changed. You cannot understand the psychology of this conflict without 1979.
Paint the picture for us. Before 1979, Tehran wasn't the pariah capital we think of today.
Not at all. In the 60s and 70s, Tehran was often called the Paris of the East. It was cosmopolitan. You had the Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, who was aggressively pro-Western.
He was buddies with American presidents. He bought American fighter jets. European royalty, like the King of Belgium, visited there.
But it wasn't a democracy. Let's not romanticize it too much.
No, and that's the key. On the surface, it was miniskirts and discos and Western tourists. Underneath, it was a brutal police state.
The Shah had the Savak, his secret police. They tortured dissidents. They crushed anyone who spoke out.
And that repression brewed a powerful resentment that crossed all political lines.
Which brings us to the revolution. The narrative we often hear in the West is that the radical Islamists just took over. But looking at the history books, that's not the whole story, is it? It wasn't just men in turbans.
No, and this is crucial to understanding the tragedy of modern Iran and why the U.S. thinks the people might be on their side today. The 1979 revolution started as a massive coalition, a motley crew.
You had nationalists, communists, Marxists, liberals, students, and yes, the Islamists led by Ayatollah Khomeini.
They all hated the Shah. They all united to kick him out.
So how did the Islamists end up with all the power? If the Marxists and liberals were there, what happened to them?
Betrayal. Absolute political cannibalism. Once the Shah fled, the Islamists, who are the most organized and had a network of mosques, turned on their allies.
They didn't just push them out, they liquidated them. They imprisoned the Marxists, executed the generals, exiled the intellectuals.
They hijacked the revolution.
Exactly, they stole it. And that is why the U.S. and Israel view today's operation as unfinished business.
They see the current regime not as the legitimate voice of the Iranian people, but as the group that stole the country in 1979.
They view this operation as correcting a historical error. They believe there is still a dormant, liberal, pro-Western Iran underneath waiting to be liberated.
So what comes next? We are on day one. The experts say this isn't a 24-hour operation. This isn't a one and done.
No. Expect immediate escalation. Phase 1 was blinding the radar, the air superiority we talked about. Phase 2 will target the regime's survival infrastructure, specifically the security services.
You mean the Basij?
Yes, the Basij are the key. They are the paramilitary enforcers.
You see them in the videos. The guys on motorbikes with batons, sometimes plainclothes, who beat protesters and drag people into vans.
They are the regime's immune system.
So the U.S. has to target them.
If the U.S. wants a revolution to succeed, they have to take the Basij off the board. They have to break the regime's ability to police the streets.
If the Basij are afraid to go out because they might get hit by a drone, then the protesters can take the squares. If the Basij remains intact, the revolution fails. It's that simple.
Regime change, frankly, the U.S. has a terrible track record with this. Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya. We break things, but we aren't great at fixing them.
It's abysmal. Toppling a government is the easy part. A few weeks of bombing can usually destroy a state. Building a new one, that's where it falls apart.
Who runs the water treatment plants? Who pays the police? Who stops the looting?
And the risk of escalation is huge. Trump warned of long-range missiles threatening the U.S. and Europe in his speech as a justification.
That is the nightmare scenario. If the mullahs feel like this is the end, if they are in their bunkers and realize there's no way out, no plane to Venezuela waiting for them, do they launch everything they have left?
Do they fire missiles at Europe? Do they try to close the Strait of Hormuz and crash the global economy? A dying regime is a dangerous regime. They have no incentive to hold back.
We are witnessing a historic military gamble, a tech-heavy air campaign hoping to trigger a grassroots revolution led by a U.S. president who promised to avoid exactly this kind of war.
It is a moment of extreme volatility. We are walking a tightrope over a very deep canyon.
I want to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to mull over. We've talked about the tactical goals and the political hopes, but let's look at history one more time.
In 1979, the revolution was hijacked by the most ruthless group, not the most democratic one. The nice guys didn't win.
Right. Power creates a vacuum.
If this operation succeeds, if the regime falls, who fills the vacuum? Is it the democratic students we see on TV?
Is it the exiled prince with his radio broadcasts? Or is there another group, perhaps a military junta or a different radical faction or even a separatist warlord waiting in the wings?
Revolutions are messy, and usually the guys with the biggest guns and the best organization win, not necessarily the ones with the best ideals.
Are the U.S. and Israel prepared for who or what comes after the Ayatollahs? We might get rid of them only to find something equally complicated replacing them?
That is something we will have to watch unfold. We will keep tracking this deep dive into the sources as it develops.
Thanks for joining us. Stay safe out there.